Welcome in. This is the Individual Skills Hockey Podcast, a podcast that aims to bring quality education to youth hockey coaches, parents, and players with the mission of having a positive impact on the youth hockey world. I'm your host, Miles Deeth, and today we are so lucky to have the head coach of the Wayzata Girls High School program, Brad Podiak, in today. Brad, thanks for doing this. I know you're a busy guy. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Miles. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, first question I always ask all of our guests so far is just to give a little bit of background on yourself, where you grew up, when you started playing hockey, a little bit about your playing career, and then finally how you got into coaching.
Certainly. I actually was born out of state. I was born in Toledo, Ohio, and my dad was transferred up here with General Mills, and I was a little late to the game. A gentleman at my dad's office kept telling him, "You got to get your son signed up to play hockey," and I must have been 7 or 8 years old when my dad originally signed me up for hockey here in the Wayzata Youth Hockey Association. So I think I played 1 year of mites before moving on to squirts, and it was a lot of fun. I went all the way up through, graduated from Wayzata. I was on some very good teams, and I was on some very bad teams. I think my first year as a squirt, I played in a house league level, and I totally remember playing for Herb's Service Garage. We were 0-10-2. Those 2 ties were big for us. And then in my last year of youth hockey, we ended up winning the state championship in 1986. That was a lot of fun and a lot of great memories.
So you kind of got started late, fair to say. I mean, one
Very
year
fair.
of mites into
Yeah.
squirts. Was that difficult? Just starting out squirts? Did you have to catch up or?
I don't really remember, but how difficult my young brain thought about it at that time. But as I look back, I can remember, I was on the lowest level mite team, and then I played 3 years of squirts, and I was on that house league team that was 0-10-2. Not that my ability on that would have changed anything on that record. But I just fell in love with the game, and so there I was shooting pucks, doing anything I could to get better. My dad had me signed up for skating schools. I mean, I never missed a Dick Vraw clinic, and I think just my personal love for the game is what really helped me excel.
Nice, that's awesome. So a question I ask almost all the coaches so far is to kind of sum up your coaching style, maybe, or your personality, in 20 or 30 seconds. What do you think of when you think of Coach Brad Podiak?
That's a really great question because there's just so many different avenues a coach can take, whether they're motivating, they're listening, or they're all X's and O's, whether you get player feedback. I think all of those things are important, right? You need a nurturer, if you will. I mean, players need to know that they're cared for, right? And we're sitting here on a hockey podcast talking about one of the roughest games in town. Yet, your players want to know that they're cared for before they even stepped on the ice. So, I think I bring a little bit of all of that to the table. I'm constantly quizzing our kids, asking them what we should do, not necessarily in game situations, but as a team, and how they feel about things, and if there's any input coming back from them. And I think just that kind of group think, whether it will involve the whole coaching staff, but I think when you loop the players and the captains in on that, it gives everybody a feeling of responsibility.
Awesome. It's been said before, I've heard this a couple different places, that teams sort of take on the personality of their coach. A, do you agree with that? And B, if so, what type of personality do you think your teams have had over the years as it relates to you, or do you think you have effect on that?
Sure. I hope that's not 100% true because I might be the sorest loser in the state of Minnesota when it comes to sports. But all jokes aside, I do think it's important. I do think teams take the identity of their coach, especially when they have respect for the coach. And so in the way you really outside of hockey, the way you respect the game, respect the refs, respect the arena, the staff. Our high school team, everywhere we go, we travel with our own garbage can. We clean up the locker room and leave a note thanking the staff for bringing us, right? And just in our last trip out of town, we ate at a restaurant, and there were the girls cleaning up without even being told to do that. We were wiping down tables, and it just kind of becomes part of your culture, right? So when everybody gets on the same page, things just start happening.
Awesome. And finally, I guess in this kind of intro section, do you have any cool memories or stories from growing up in this community, playing hockey for Wayzata, and then continuing to be here today?
Sure, it's funny that you asked that question. Some of my fondest memories are one of our coaches when I was a youth player. He's still a firefighter in Wayzata. He's still around town. He was a Zamboni driver, rink attendant at the old, what's now Central Middle School, which was the high school at the time. And as our Pee Wee coach, he would let us in to late night skate over there, and our parents would drop us off, and we would literally from 10:30 to 3:30 in the morning skate over at Central Middle School. And I think that had as much to do with the development of my group of buddies as any practice, any whistle, any coach ever did. So that was just always a ton of fun. And then, I had a coach in Bantams. It was the year he was both years, and we went to state both of those years. And his name was Charlie Burrows, and he was just so motivational. He was just so motivating, and the on ice, the conditioning we did, which most people would think was a punishment, he just seemed to find a way to make it fun, and we believed in it, and we had T-shirts made up on it. And you think about doing a breakaway at the end of practice or a breakaway game before your next game, and none of us wanted to do that. We wanted to do the conditioning because he had us convinced that was going to help us, and he was right. But I do think my best overall memory is actually still being made, because we skate on Wednesday nights in the summer here still. There's about 35 guys that I'm a 1989 grad, and guys between the years of like 86 and 93. It's about 35 of us, and we still get together. So, 30, 35 years later, we're still laughing and making memories.
Yeah, I think that's really cool about the Wayzata community, and there's other communities around the area that have similar types of cultures and pockets of grad years that have kind of stuck together.
Sure.
Over the years. But moving on, I wanted to kind of get into the meat of our talk here today. And, I titled the section Comparing Boys and Girls Hockey because I think you have a very unique perspective on all of this, having coached your son's teams, one of which was at the lower levels, one of which went on to play for the high school team, and then with your daughter, who was last in order, the youngest, coaching her girls teams as well growing up, and now taking on the high school job at Wayzata, which I haven't mentioned. For those of you who don't know, this is your first year at Wayzata. So Why don't you just talk about that first year with the high school program experience first, and then we can dive into some other stuff.
Sure. So, the first year experience has just been great. And, as we do this podcast, our record is 1-3. Would we like to be 4-0? For sure. Every team would like to be 4-0 after 4 games, right? But, we've got a young team still, even with a lot of returners. We do have some experience, but we've got a young team. And so we're a young team. With a lot of varsity experience, just young grade-wise, and we're 1-3. But the outlook is great. Our schedule's favorable moving forward, although we do have to get through the tough Lake Conference. But in comparison to last season, where this team faced the toughest schedule in the state, strength of schedule in the state, we're pretty optimistic about our chances. We held one of the top teams in our section to a very tight game the other night, and come the end of the year, we're looking to make things interesting.
And maybe some of the non-hockey stuff. Being this is your first time as a head high school coach, correct?
Yes, that's correct. This is my first go around, so I think there's some big differences from the boys. Which, by the way, I just loved working with the boys, both varsity and JV teams at Wayzata for the last 7-8 years, whatever that was. But yeah, I think the differences are pretty similar, but then also pretty great on some things. And I'll take our picture day for the first thing. We spent more time doing dancing TikToks and selfie photos with each other than I think maybe the boys would do. The girls are definitely more social on the ice with each other. Lots of times when we go out for practice, there won't be a lot of puck shooting going on if they hadn't seen each other in a while, and they'll talk. But they're waiting for the whistle to get going.
Yeah.
The boys are always going, right? They're ripping pucks that sometimes they're not even looking where they're shooting them. They just want to get out there, play hockey, bang each other, and have a good time. And the girls wait for that whistle, wait to be told what to do, and they're literal with it. And I don't think either way is right or wrong. It's who they are, and as a coach, you have to adapt to that.
Right. So now talking about the actual game itself. So you look at mites, 10U, 12U, 15U, right? As you move up the ladder, I think it's important, and again, because you have a perspective on all this, you've coached at every level. Is there a difference in the game itself, depending on the age? Maybe you can just talk a little bit about the differences in the actual game itself between boys and girls hockey.
Yeah, I think as they get older, a definite difference in the game is just the physical play that's involved with it. Right now, if you came over and watched, professional women's hockey or the Olympics, you'd see quite a bit of physical hockey, and you'd be wondering maybe what I'm talking about. But if you've ever grown up through the ranks and seen how a girls' game is played versus a boys' game, a top player on the other team, is going to be scouted by in the boys section by the other coaches, and they're going to know, hey, let's play the body on him, let's frustrate him, let's really work him over, and try to change the face of the game, get him off of his game, right? And that's something that can't be done in the girls' game, to the extent that it can be done in a boys' game. So I think what you see is a lot of times these girls that are just better developed can really dominate a game at the younger ages and even into high school. And I think defenders are strapped a little. I almost think of them back, maybe 20 years ago when they had all the rules in the NFL for defensive backs. If they breathed on a wide receiver, it was pass interference, right?
Yeah.
And so you got to be just great with your stick and stick on puck to be able to stop these players and really just maintain your position. Or you're going to get beat because they're fast and they're good.
Yeah, you hear it all the time that checking and maybe puberty is the great equalizer in the boys' game when you get into bantams in high school. Without the legality of actually body checking in girls, maybe some of that equalization doesn't quite exist in the same way. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Exactly. I think you're right. It's, when it's, speed kills in the girls' game, because there isn't much you can do to stop it. You can gobble up a neutral zone, or, you can do a left wing lock or gobble up the neutral zone, or, whatever you want to do. But those top end girls that are really flying, they're going to find their way. And it's, my opinion, simply because we can't play the body.
Right. So now getting into some of the kind of like softer stuff, what are some differences between boys and girls in the way they respond to coaching or feedback, for that matter?
Sure, I think at a younger age, you'll work on stuff with boys, and a straight breakout, pass it to the wing, hit the center, or chip it out and hit the center coming through the middle there. And as you're teaching it, and I'm talking squirts and peewees, the kids will turn around. In our summer league game, we threw the puck all the way down the middle, and it was a breakaway, and Billy scored, right? And they've got all these glamorous ideas about, scoring a Michigan goal or something like that. And the girls are just so literal that sometimes you have to say, I didn't actually mean every word I just said, because they will run through the wall if you ask them to run through the wall.
Yeah, I do some sessions with the 8U girls, which is advanced might age for those that don't know, and we'll be doing line skating to start out, and sometimes I'll skate. We're just doing forward strides to the red line, let's say, and I'll turn backwards at the red line to actually see if the kids are going when I blow the whistle, and the girls turn backward at the red line.
Oh, sure.
Because that's exactly what I did.
Right.
So,
right.
and then the boys are, out of control and not listening.
Right,
So
right, yeah. So straight lines with the girls too,
yeah,
right? They,
you have
they,
to.
they get straight equal lines, and the
Yep.
boys are all over the place.
Yep. What about what motivates female and male athletes at the younger ages, or maybe it's a better question for high school age kids?
Yeah, I think the motivation is maybe equal on both sides. It's for success for themselves and for their team, right? Um, they're out there. I think having been part of the boys program and coaching boys all the way up, and of course playing myself, it's about the locker room and playing for your buddies, right? I mean, you want to play well for your family and play well for your coaches and that. But when it boils down to a boys' high school hockey game, it's those 20 guys sitting in the locker room looking at each other, either knowing they got to go out and do what they always do to beat a weaker opponent, or really up their game and stick to the game plan and the strategy to beat what may be considered a better opponent. So they want that success and they want it together. For the most part, that's been my experience, and I think that same thing is on the girls' side. They want to win the game, right? They're here to win. Both the boys and the girls just have a little bit different experience with how they get to that end goal of that success of winning the game, right? But they all want to be together. They want to enjoy each other, do things off the ice. We lost a close one the other night, 5-4 to Benilde. I think I've been on a boys' bus on the way home, and in a 5-4 loss, and there's not a peep spoken on the bus, right? And we came home from St. Louis Park to Benilde the other night, and we were belting songs at the top of our lungs. The girls were just happy, so they were able to maybe set those things aside a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
But I really think that both of they just want to be successful. They want to contribute, be successful, and win as a team.
Yeah, and the last thing you said there about the bus, a lot of people would hear that story and have like a sort of negative connotation towards the girls about that.
Yeah.
But as long as everything else is taken care of, to me, that's just how they operate, right? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a negative thing.
Right, and I've learned that myself too. Like, there's Tommy Kramer. I don't know if you saw his latest tweet.
Yep.
He saw the Vikings hugging with their buddies after the game, after that tough loss, and he kind of questioned the mentality of the players today for doing that, right? And you see that a lot in high school sports now because these kids play so much summer hockey together, and I don't remember doing that at my age, right? I was upset after a loss or but they're just different. And so from the girls, I've just learned to accept that, like, look, they've accepted this loss. It's water under the bridge, and they're going to be back tomorrow, and they're going to be working hard tomorrow. And it's just part of what you signed up for.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about male coaches that you're a great example of this, had a Division I career, playing wise, and have been asked to coach a girls team. And I think there is some level of intimidation or insecurity from those male coaches, thinking that it's so much different from 10U to squirt hockey. Is that the case? And I think we kind of went over this. I mean, there's not. Basically, what I'm saying is, what advice do you have to those guys that get asked to coach a girls team?
Do it.
Yeah.
You'll learn a lot about yourself. It's not, I don't look at myself as some Division I athlete who's like come in to save girls hockey at Wayzata, right? Because I know that's farthest from the truth. There's guys who've had wonderful hockey careers who are terrible coaches, and guys who never really laced them up or played at a high level who are fantastic coaches. And really, that goes for like the whole Wayzata association. I mean, there's people that are contributing to our association that are forward facing and in the backside that are incredible contributors to what we're doing. You look at our youth program on the boys and girls side, and I maybe count 5 guys who've held the Stanley Cup over their head, right? And that's true at our main competition, in the Lake Conference, right? At Minnetonka and Edina, that's there too. but for a guy, whether you play Division One hockey or high school hockey, or you're just wanting to coach, I would certainly encourage it because it's very competitive. You're going to love working with the girls because, like I said earlier, they're going to do anything you ask them to do, and they love the game.
Yeah. And as you're talking there, I'm thinking if there is any, if somebody out there is a little bit insecure because they don't know the girls' game, let's say, what I would say to that is like, if this is your first time coaching, you don't know coaching at all. So like, you're gonna figure stuff out regardless if you have a son or a daughter.
Correct.
And so
Yeah, and you're gonna learn every day, and it's uh, there's NHL coaches getting fired every day, right? And
yeah.
what did they do wrong yesterday that wasn't done? You're gonna learn and get through it. And I've noticed some of the greatest pictures I've taken with my daughter are her and I on the ice together.
Yeah.
So it's been a pleasure.
All right, moving on. I wanted to get to our last section here, kind of the state of girls hockey, and the first thing I'd like to ask about is female coaching in the game right now. I think everyone agrees that it'd be awesome if there was a lot of female coaches out there for every team. I think what's happening nowadays, we've seen it happen in certain scenarios that female coaching candidates are being prioritized. So my question is on that. Is that a good practice to have? And yeah, what are your general thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess my real general thoughts on that are, hey, it's a job opening, a high school job opening in the state of Minnesota is going to be posted, and everyone's going to know about it. And those that would like the job are going to apply for it, right? And I think it's the job of the activities department to find the best fit or the best candidate and, offer them that position, whether it be male or female. That being said, I think every staff needs a female on it, or more. I love seeing all the women head coaches across the state, the long-standing ones. It's great to see them being successful. I think you're just going to continue to see more women getting back into coaching hockey as hockey grows. I mean, it's just straight numbers thing. We have one female on our staff right now, and she's just been fantastic with the girls. She's a little bit younger at 23 years old, and she played Division III hockey, so she's come up in the state of Minnesota playing in her community. She played Division III hockey, which, as you know, is very good hockey, and she knows the game. And she's able to communicate really well with our team. And I guess I don't look at her as a female coach.
Yeah.
She knows the game, and she's got great suggestions, and she argues her point, and we get through it because we coach as a team. In terms of the dynamics of having a female on the team, it makes it much easier as she can always go in the locker room. She can always do things like that maybe a male can't at certain times, right? So from that standpoint, which probably isn't all that important, it's great to have her, but she's there and earned the right to be there just like any man.
Right. And she's a little bit younger, so that's another factor that she can easily relate to the girls.
No question about it,
Yeah.
right? There's definitely 35 years postgraduate here.
Yeah.
Times have changed a little, right? So it's nice to have.
Yeah, and that's just one factor in the fit of
Correct.
being effective as a coach at the high school level.
Right.
I think is our conclusion on that. How do you feel about our program here at Wayzata? Big picture, our girls program from 6U, I guess we have now, of only girls, all the way up to your squad.
Yeah, I think as for a listener who's familiar with Wayzata, hearing you ask that question, they'd be like, "Well, boy, they were 6-20 last year. What's wrong with Wayzata hockey?" Right? I've heard that a lot. What's wrong with Wayzata hockey? And there's a lot of factors that are involved there, and being very close to the situation with the girls who are the age of being on the varsity team this year. We just didn't have a lot of girls playing hockey as my daughter was coming through. Numbers were just low. a school of almost 4,000 students, you'd think that'd be impossible, right? But it's reality. We had two teams of less than 15 skaters and one goalie. You look at Wayzata High School overall, and the rest of the girls' sports are dominant, right? So it's not like there's something in the water at Wayzata where we don't have athletes.
Yeah.
But what's great to see is that the future is really bright. As we do our Monday night skills every night. I'm getting to know the coaches and the teams at the youth program, and we have some fantastic young players coming through, and the numbers are growing. I don't know the exact mite numbers, but it appears to me that there's more U10 teams than there's ever been, and the U12s are the same way. And early on this season, they're all having success, so that's really fun to see.
Yeah, and I think a big indicator for that too is the participation in the spring, summer, and fall clinics. And we're talking about adding extra hours this spring and summer for the girls.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I just got a note on that the other day. Yes, that there's more girls, which of course you need more ice, right? Who knows? Maybe this will just keep growing. Where we need another sheet of ice over here at the Plymouth Ice Center.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just really nice to see the numbers coming through now.
Yeah, and on that topic, I think everyone realizes that the future is bright. Their comments that I've gotten from some people are, I guess, like questions on how do we make sure that these girls, progress through and develop and all this stuff. I think there's a lot of angst right now
Sure.
at Wayzata that this won't pan out for some reason, or
Sure.
lack of a better
Yeah.
phrase.
Yeah. There's the I don't know if is that fear. The fear that it won't pan out. It'll pan out whether we win or lose. The girls will be fine, right? They're playing a team sport and learning life lessons. From a straight winning standpoint or being dominant standpoint, will things change at Wayzata? The numbers are there. We've got a coaching staff at the high school level who wants to participate with the youth program, who wants to know the coaches, we're completely transparent in what we're doing at the high school level. We'll talk to anyone or help anyone. We'll go on the ice with any team. We see most of them on Monday nights. We've already built some good relationships, like I said, with the coaching staff, and that stuff all seems to be going well. So it's something where we compete to keep players here because of some private schools, and my take on that is for all the players that the Lake Conference teams, not just Wayzata, but the Lake Conference teams have lost to private schools, we haven't seen the success from the private schools, right? So that's not a guarantee either.
Yeah.
Just because you change schools, that's not a guarantee either. And then at the same time, I think if you really, get into a touchy subject here, but if you really drill down, it's back to there's one association that's really developing girls hockey players, and it's Edina, and they're a template for everybody else. And these other schools that are competing with them right now, it's come down to some transfers and how the transfer rules are working in high school sports. I've got numbers that we don't need to talk about, but there's a lot of transfers into a lot of the other top-end schools.
Yeah. And I wanted to make sure I got this in there about the state of the youth program, just as my own opinion, and I'm sure you share this as well. The quality of coaching right now throughout the ranks is off the charts. It's so impressive, the quality of coaches that we have at every level on down to 6U.
I couldn't agree more, and I noticed it at on our skill nights, which is the U10s through the U15s, and that includes the B2 teams all the way up to the A teams. What I'm noticing is the B2 teams and the B teams, all their coaches are out on the ice. All of them are trying to learn. All of them are positive and working with the girls, and that's really fun to see. And then you get into our higher level teams at that age, and there you go with guys who've had hugely successful careers of their own playing hockey, but from my interactions with them, they appear like they're great coaches as well, and they really care about the whole sum of it.
Yeah. So a little bit bigger now. I'm going to make you commissioner of the State High School League for a second, and
Uh-oh.
I'm going to give you a maximum of 2 changes you can make. What would they be and why?
I think if I was the commissioner of the State High School League, 2 changes for girls hockey that I would make. I would like to see girls hockey, much like boys hockey, at the higher levels, be more physical. We talked about it earlier on fast smooth skating. Stick handlers can just completely change a game, right? With no tools for defense.
Yep.
I shouldn't say no tools for defense, because you can stop them, but just you've got to be able to be that lumbering defenseman who can move someone out in front of the net, or play the body just a little bit harder to impede somebody.
Well, there is one tool, and it's right now skating ability.
Right,
And,
right,
and,
right.
and angling and stick position and that stuff too. But if you're not an elite skater,
Right.
you have a tough time right now.
No, 100%.
And there's other ways in the boys' game to help your team win if you're not an elite skater, whether that's being really smart or really physical.
Yeah, and I think people might say, well, why is he trying to elevate the lower girls who can't keep up with these skaters? And I think it's going to make those other players better themselves, because when they move into that next college level, whether it's Division III or higher, that's a physical game. They're going to be more prepared for that moving forward.
And you're seeing that now in your games, the lack of tolerance for rubbing someone out or going through someone's hands a little bit too hard, and that's called every time or most of the time.
Yeah, there's nothing more important than safety, right? But I think we've gotten a little soft on it at times.
Yeah. And I think there's a way for refs to call it. I mean, everyone knows what an open ice hit looks like.
Sure.
And what a body check looks like.
Sure.
And a really aggressive one, and I think that can stay out, but there's definitely a way for more stuff to be let go.
I 100% agree.
Yeah. Anything else on
That's the one rule right
That's
there.
the one.
Can't believe we just changed that one. That's great. Checking in girls hockey 24-25 season. And then, if I was the head of the State High School League, I struggle to talk about an issue without having a solution. But the issue to me is, the transfer rules and how this is affecting our game and all sports. And I don't have an answer for it. All I know is I'm an older school guy who is a community guy who, believes everybody should be wearing the sweater of the town they grew up in, versus easily packing up and moving somewhere or transferring, through a loophole in the State High School League. And that's really not a shot at the State High School League. If you look around at some of these teams in any sport, it's for lack of a better way of saying it, it's just not right.
Yeah.
and again, it's just my opinion.
Yeah, and this might be an ignorant comment, and I might not know what I'm talking about, but from my perspective, girls hockey should be still growing based on when it started compared to boys hockey, right?
Yeah.
It's in its infancy compared to boys hockey. As this thing grows, the consolidation of talent onto teams runs the risk of shrinking it back down.
Yeah.
Because less viable teams, less competitive teams will discourage girls from coming out to try out for their high school team when they know it might not be a great experience.
Right, from a winning and losing standpoint.
Which
right.
contributes to the fun you're having.
100%.
There's no,
right.
I mean, that's just a fact.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's just, it's too bad. It's if you had to, stand on one side of the line or the other, the guys who, are like me, who, wishes there was more constraints on the transfer level, or the transferability, if you will. We all want to see that growth in girls hockey. I'm not so sure that the people who are doing the transferring or jumping through the loopholes care about the growth of women's hockey.
Yeah. All right, last question. On maybe a more positive note. So I've heard it said a couple times from different coaches on what you would consider a win to be this season at Wayzata, or what are some of the things that you want to accomplish in this first year?
Yeah, so I think with the team and on the ice, you know, you get a little cliche talking about culture, right? But I think it's important. Culture. I'm regurgitating other high-end coaches, high-level coaches' words. You know, it's not something you put on a T-shirt, right? It's not a phrase that's painted on the wall that everybody touches when they go by. It's those little things like cleaning up in the restaurant after your team was there, you know, cleaning up in the locker room, picking up pucks, you know, working hard, knowing the system, knowing your responsibilities, knowing your role on the team. I think is the most important thing a hockey player can know and contribute to the team is know your role. Um, so, I think a successful season for us is building that culture for the future. As a coaching staff, it's continuing to work with the youth program, whether it's the setup Monday Night Skills where we're there, but you know we want to be close with that youth hockey team or that youth hockey program, especially on the girls' side, and so we'll have some youth nights here. Things have changed on the things we're able to do in the rink at night. So I think a successful season would just be to build that excitement from the youth program, knowing there's a place for them in high school. That's going to be a great place. And for the girls on today's team, it's just, hey, let's dial in what we need to do and do our best and have the most successful season we can. And like I mentioned earlier, we're here to give teams a run come section time.
Yeah, I love it. And just a personal story on that's related. Like, I graduated from Wayzata in 2012, and our 2012 team wasn't that great on the ice, but great group of guys, great culture in the locker room. It was actually Pat's first year. The couple years before that, we were fantastic and didn't end up making it to the X. In 2013, my first year out, they actually did make it to the X. And I remember when I came back to visit for spring break, they were practicing for the state tournament. And I'll never forget this. Pete Samardzija, our goalie coach, skated over to me, said hi, how's it going? And he looked me right in the eye and he goes, just so you know, you're a part of this. You helped with this, even though I wasn't there that year. Yeah. So I think that stuff is super powerful on raising the standards, raising the expectations of everything, and it's a 3 to 5 year process.
There's no doubt that was great. Those are great words from Pete. I'm glad to hear you tell that story. And I as I mentioned earlier about us late skating at the Central Middle School, which is the old high school. Those guys are still around town who were coaching and giving back then, right? So they were part of it. I would argue, right? They helped build that rink. Their initials are in the cement over there, right? And they helped build that 2013 team. So it's pretty cool to be a part of.
Awesome. That's all I got for you. Good luck tonight. I know you got a game.
Yeah, Eastview, 7 o'clock.
Well, it's going to be released on Thursday,
I'm joking.
So you can check the box score.
Yeah, this was awesome, Miles. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, as always, if you want to reach out with any questions for Brad, hockeyops@wayzatahockey.org, or you can feel free to stop him or me at the rink if you have any other questions.
Thank you.
Thanks.